Let's Talk is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to Let's Talk episode 52, brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network. Howdy all, Father Corey Stika. Welcome to Let's Talk, our weekly SQPN community podcast. Glad you could join us. We got actually three panelists this week. Two are returning and one's brand new, and I'll actually let one of our returnees introduce them. But first we've got Brian Kelly is here again. He's without his wife this time. So how's it going, Father? Brian?
Doing well. Thank you very much.
And I'll let you introduce actually your guest that you've brought with so people get to know him.
Sure, absolutely. We have, welcome please, Mr. Chad Schneider. Chad is a very good friend of mine from That Man Is You. We're with Excellent. The same parish, St. Angela Merici Parish in Missouri City, Texas, and he's been a very, very good friend and a mentor to me, so I'm happy to have him with us.
Well, excellent. Well, glad to have you, Chad. Glad you could join us.
Thank you very much, Father.
Yeah, and so that kind of gives a little hint what we'll be talking about today with that introduction, so that's good. And then Mike Creevy's with us again. How's it going, Mike?
Not too bad. It's finally getting warm again around here since the last time I was on, but we're moving into a new house, and it's taking forever, so...
Oh, that always does.
Yep.
Anybody who moves knows how much of a pain that is sometimes. Yep. So, well, glad y'all could join us. Because it's Father's Day coming up, we wanted to kind of talk about some stuff involving men. We had a couple weeks ago, we had a bunch of women, a couple of women talk about women's issues. Now, this time we're going to talk about men's issues. Of course, start first of all with Father's Day. That's like the one day a year fathers really, I don't know if we look, well, I can't say we, I'm a spiritual father, but you're biological fathers. But that men either look forward to or really dread. I don't know. What's your guys' take on that one?
Go ahead, Jen.
I really enjoy Father's Day. At one time, I guess you could look at it as a day where you could just take off and go play golf kind of thing. But now I just look at it as an opportunity to spend time with the kids and enjoy that time with them. And I'm sure they'll cook for me and do that fun stuff that I normally like to do on the weekend. So. Sure. I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be fun.
Sure.
Yeah. It's and for me it used to be that type of experience, but now it's more of a bonding experience because it seems like every Father's Day we're traveling to a tournament somewhere or coming back home from a softball or baseball tournament. So actually this Sunday my daughter and I are flying up to Philadelphia to go to a school and have her try out there. So that's how I'm going to spend my Father's Day.
A little bit quieter Father's Day, huh?
I know. In my case, I'm the noob here. So my daughter's 2.5, and she's our first. So I will probably get some kind of card with some really awesome scribbling in it, and like a picture or something like that I'll treasure, of course. So we haven't really developed our own kind of tradition with it yet. But we try to get together with my dad and my father-in-law, try to get a bunch of the fathers together for a big family thing, hopefully.
Oh, well, very good. It's an important holiday. And, we kind of call it a holiday. It's sometimes it seems like it's one of those Hallmark holidays. Another excuse to sell more cards. But it's an important thing because especially when it seems like fatherhood really isn't as appreciated, shall we say, as a culture as it once was. That we hear so much about families being broken up and issues with families and fathers. Just there's not the appreciation for fatherhood that it seems like it should have, and especially the appreciation that we have for mothers and motherhood, which is a very important thing as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if I may, because I was thinking about that earlier, and it was as I often do when I'm coming on an SQPN show, I can't help but hit Wikipedia for a couple minutes to just sort of look something up. And if it's true, and who are we to doubt Wikipedia's truthfulness?
It's on the internet, so
exactly,
it must be true.
It has to be true. It apparently, I guess I think it was June 19th, 1910 was sort of like the first that I could find like some sort of celebration of it, but it wasn't recognized as a national holiday until like 1972. Which was many decades after Mother's Day was instituted, I guess. So
Sure.
So even that too, I was like, well, what about the dads?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and what are your family's kind of traditions? Whether it is your families when you were growing up or now, what are some of the traditions that kind of go around Father's Day for you guys? I think all of our families kind of have that. But what are some of the more notable ones that you guys remember, either as fathers yourselves or that you would do for your fathers?
Yeah, just for me, I remember my dad usually on Sunday, and it was always the Sunday backyard barbecue. That's kind of, and that's what I would love to do on a Father's Day is spend time in the backyard barbecuing. Of course, go to mass first, and then that afternoon, spend time with the kids and really just enjoy that. And that's what it's all about. It's all about kicking back with the kids, playing in the backyard, and just enjoying the afternoon.
Yeah, I would have to second that. We, as a young boy, we would go over to my grandmother's house, and all the kids and the aunts, the cousins and that sort of thing. We'd all get together and give the parents, the dads, their ties or their socks or, their scribbled on pieces of paper and that sort of thing. And then they'd send us outside and we play football or tag or whatever. And then, about 8:30 at night would be time to go home. So that's what I remember about Father's Day.
Oh, that sounds fun. Yeah.
Pretty much the same here. I guess that sort of develops as a tradition, some variation of a cookout, and we would do punt, pass, and kick contests. You get like a big long measuring tape out, and my uncle would set that up, and we'd go into. When I'm like 6 years old or 8, whatever, I feel like I kicked or threw the football really far, and looking back on it, it must have been like I don't know, 15 feet or something, 20 feet, not very far. It felt far, and you had the tape there and everything, right? So we had proof of it, But that was just always, those memories were great, having everybody together and kind of getting to just show that love and respect, for my dad, but also have the my uncle there and my grandfather, and so those are some memories I have too.
Sure. Yeah, we would do a lot of the same things. Maybe not so much like go and play football, but definitely would do some kind of cookout or picnic or go out to eat or just do something a little bit special for Dad. Nothing really major. I think maybe it's something about us for men is we tend to take care of mothers more than we do the fathers. We want to spoil the mothers a bit more. But so it wouldn't be quite to the production that usually Mother's Day was, but it was usually a pretty, still made it a kind of a special day for my dad. And I still, like to this day, my folks live about 800 miles away. So, can't go visit on Father's Day or anything like that. But I definitely, make sure to call and see how he's doing and see what they got, what special things they've got planned and things like that. So it try to make it make it a special point to wish him a happy Father's Day anyways, definitely be doing that, of course I'm still privileged to have my father around. Both my parents are still very much alive and doing well. So that's a good thing too. But, well, kind of, I don't know. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about for Father's Day? Cause there's another topic we want to kind of move into that dealing with fathers and in manhood, but is there anything else you guys want to talk about with Father's Day?
I have sort of a question, or I don't know if it's I don't know how to phrase it. It kind of goes back to what you were saying, Father, about our sort of instinct to kind of pamper mom, because I, as you said that, I was just thinking, I truly, I'm not saying that I, don't, or deliberately don't put much thought into what I get my dad for Father's Day, but I know I don't give it as much sort of concern, if that makes sense. And I don't think I'm alone in that, but I don't know. I wonder why that is. It's just something special about mom, maybe. I don't know. You're worried that, well, she's going to love what you get her anyway, too. But there's just something different about, I feel like, getting that right gift or the right sort of like flower arrangement or the dinner or something. It's more, something that I think about than, whatever we do for my dad. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's more societal than anything else. I think it's something that we as a society, we put more emphasis on that as growing up. You always get the right thing from mom, but dad's okay with the tie or the sock or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it's more societal than anything else.
Well, and I wonder too if our relationship with our fathers is very different. As men, how we relate to our fathers in general is very different than how we relate to our mothers. And, I think that shows in how we treat these two holidays, that we view, for whatever reason, our relationship with our mother, something that we take a little more, I don't want to say serious, because I don't think most men who have good fathers, good mothers, that we don't take our relationship with our fathers seriously. We just do it differently. How we show that relationship is very different than how we do with our mothers. Again, this is a generality. I mean, there's everybody's a little bit different, but this is in general.
Yeah, I'll pitch in there. I mean, my dad, if I just give him a call on Father's Day and just wish him a happy Father's Day, he's happy with that. I mean, that's he's good, right? So, dads just are a little bit different, I guess you could say, in that respect. But
yeah, I think I know some dads that of course, when their kids are old enough to do this, but they're happy if their kids just come over with a 6-pack of beer and say, "Hey, let's hang out." That's a good Father's Day. Again, if the kids are old enough to do that.
That's a great Father's Day.
I was going to say, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I was going to say, most guys are like...
An IPA and a little hot sun.
There you go.
Porch.
Hey, sit on the back porch and enjoy a couple of cold beers, and I think most guys would agree on that.
we had I think this is okay to say, we had my old dog years ago had this, like, someone got him like this vest, and he never, like, we don't know where it came from, whatever, but it had these pouches on the side, like some sort of activity vest for the dog, and it was just kind of like, okay. But we actually, I think it was at a Father's Day party, somebody discovered that, like, a can of Coors, like, fit perfectly in the pouch. So, like, as the dog's, like, running around to people, like, you could send dad or somebody a beer, like, via the dog, which was just, so, like, that's a Father's Day memory that, it wouldn't quite work on Mother's Day. Quite the same. There's just something.
No,
I'll take that over the tie.
Yeah.
I'll take that instead of the tie.
Yeah, there you go. That's a hint for if you're trying to figure out what to get to your fathers. Again, if you're of age, get them some good beer.
Yep.
Spend some time with them, and I think, like you said, most fathers would be pretty happy with that. So, I think we got a pretty unanimous vote here. So, but
eyes over here.
Yeah. Well, kind of going from importance of Father's Day, important remembering our fathers to, kind of what manhood in general. We remember our fathers because we want to celebrate them as parent. But there's more to being a man than just being a father. There is, our relationship with our heavenly Father, with God. And that's kind of the topic we want to kind of focus on a bit more is spiritual manhood, and especially these movements for spiritual manhood. And now, Brian, what was the name of one that you and Chad are involved in?
It's a program called That Man Is You.
That Man Is You. Tell us a little about it.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna let Chad talk a little bit about it because he's the leader. I would say of our group.
Even better.
And I'm gonna let him jump in and talk about it because I feel like he can talk about it better.
Well, I think hopefully, Brian, you'll speak to your story as well through That Man Is You, because he has a beautiful story just through coming to the men's group and being involved with it. And it's just, it is a wonderful experience where men can come together in their Catholic faith and just really experience that camaraderie with one another, knowing that we're all going through the same things. And it doesn't matter. You could be a first-time dad. You could be a grandfather. You could be someone who's never had children. You can be an uncle. It doesn't really matter. Men of all ages. And that's one thing I think really sets it apart. But it was actually started here in Houston, Texas. Steve Bowman started it. He was an energy trader. here in Houston. And he pretty well set it aside. There was a group, St. Cecilia's Parish here in Houston, and a group of the men from that parish were attending a men's group down the street at a Presbyterian church because they didn't have it at the Catholic church. And come to find out, they came and someone just asked Steve if he could start something. And he had other things in mind, but ended up starting it anyway. And they had 124 men show up the first time they tried this at 6 something in the morning, which they were told no one would show up. So God is good, and He's blessed the ministry, and they've grown and continue to grow. And our parish has it, and we have a good group of guys that comes out. We have the fall semester, 13 sessions, and 13 sessions in the spring. And we just meet up for about an hour and a half and have fellowship. We watch a DVD on the given topic of the week. And it's just a wonderful time to get together. Then we have roundtable discussion, where we can kind of banter back and forth and bounce some things off each other. It's done a great deal of good for my family, for me personally. I know Brian,
absolutely,
for him as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I wouldn't. I was always on the fence for years and years about joining the Catholic faith, just because I had some questions, and I know those questions were answered. But the one session that really got to me, my wife kept nagging me to go, and it's like, no, I'll go when I want to go. I'll go when I want to go. And finally, I got fed up with it, and I said, you know what, God, if you want me there, you're going to wake me up. And He, I was awake at 5:30 Thursday morning. It's like, okay, I'm going. And I tell you what, it was a transformative session for me. It was exactly the lesson that we had was exactly what I needed, when I needed it, and how I needed it. And I came home and I was completely spent. And I told my wife, it's like, look, I'm not even going into work today. And I called my boss. I said, I'm not coming into work today. I hung up the phone and dropped to my knees. Wow. And I tell you what, ever since then, like Chad said, God is good, because again, it's changed my life and my perspective as a husband and a father.
Wow. How about you, Mike? Have you been involved in any kind of men's movements?
It's funny that Man Is You should come up, because we'll see. I'm kind of in a similar situation myself, but I've been encountering that around a lot of different corners in my own life, and different guys from that Man Is You. It's really been catching on in our diocese here, and I'm sort of involved with several people who are involved with that Man Is You. You know what I mean? So, but I've always been kind of on the outside circle, so it's something that I'm kind of looking into myself, and I've had a lot of people inviting me, so I'm gonna definitely check it out. And one though that I did do about a year or two ago, that was, I guess it started off sort of smaller in scope, and it was kind of a web-based one, but they kind of build in some kind of accountability, or like you go through it with a friend kind of thing. Is the Rise program. So I don't know if you guys have seen that or heard about that, but that Chris Stefanik does all the videos. I think I can't remember how many weeks it is. It's a couple weeks, and there's just a brief little daily sort of reflection. And then there's a video, and then there's like a reflection beneath that. And the curriculum for the reflections themselves was written by Bill Donahue, who's a friend of mine with the Theology of the Body Institute. So Bill and Chris and some other people put that together, and that's really been taken off, as a way for, especially when you're busy and like you have trouble trying to find, like, when am I going to find that time to, to kind of sort through these things, and especially to try to do this with somebody else, even if I can't be in a group per se right now, whatever the case is. There's this way to try to get something like that that helps you to kind of grow in fellowship with other people doing the same thing. So I found that really, really rewarding as well, and that's seeming to get a lot of good feedback right now. I know. So I think it's menriseup.org or something's the website for that. But if you just go to Google and type Rise, men's program, something like that, that'll show up as well.
Excellent. Yeah, that sounds another interesting program. It's interesting to think, that so many parishes, we try to, I can speak as a pastor, and we try to find material that fits as many people as possible. And it seems like it's always the same people every time, and it's always, I hate to say it, mostly women. How do you as men think, whether it is, for That Man Is You or Men Rise Up or any of these other programs, because there's lots of men's programs out there of various sorts and types and groups. How do we get men to, first of all, plug into these things, get interested in, getting involved in a men's organization or men's discussion, a men's group, however you want to put it? How do we get men involved in that? Because I think that's the toughest demographic we have in the church right now, is just getting men.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say it's through the personal invite. Brian, just inviting his neighbor right here, his literal neighbor to the right. He invited him, and he came. And he doesn't even go to our church. He goes to a different church down the road, and he's been coming, and he's really enjoyed it. And I can't stress that enough. It's through the personal invite. You can get up and do a talk at the end of Mass, and you may get a few guys come sign up, maybe, right?
Yep.
But when you reach out to someone personally and invite them and show that personal interest, I think that really goes. That's the most important thing you can do, and that's what gets guys really in. And then once they're there, the program really speaks for itself and really draws men in. And then, of course, the fellowship while you're there. And these guys become your brothers. They really do. I mean, that's how I met Brian. And Brian and I's friendship has really started there and blossomed from there.
Yeah, I would agree. And Chad, and I don't know if I can speak to Chad's story or not, but Chad's story and my story are pretty much basically the same. Our path to Catholicism and the faith. And I will tell you that because of that, and because he reached out to me and said, "Hey, brother, I was where you're at," it really helped me find where I needed to be and feel comfortable in that setting. Mm-hmm. And as I was telling Chad earlier, even my first time there, and at the time I was not Catholic. I just went because God woke me up at 5:30 in the morning. I will tell you that I felt at peace, and I felt like I, needed to be there, and that I was very, very welcome. Mm-hmm. And the same group of guys that welcomed me the first time are the same group of guys that welcomed me the 150th time or whatever it is. So it's incredible. And I would, any men's program, I would say to anybody out there that's thinking about joining some sort of a men's group with their parish, and it doesn't matter if it's That Man Is You or Men Rise Up or whoever, whatever it is, go. It's going to, even if you feel uncomfortable, step out of your comfort zone just a little bit, take that chance. And I will tell you that in my personal story, I would tell myself to go over and over and over again. It was definitely worth it.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, I think we have too. There's just so many. We all know them, and there's many more too. But there's so many challenges that we all face, and there's so many. It was just, you guys know Trent Horn, from Catholic Answers. I was just listening to something. I've heard him bring this up a few times, and I think he makes a compelling case that, that a lot of times, boys in school are a lot of times kind of treated like almost like defective girls, as opposed to having a sort of a different kind of nature and different set of needs and that sort of thing. And there doesn't really seem to be. I was just talking to my wife about this the other day. Like any kind of substantial rite of passage left for us, and we just sort of drift into manhood in terms of like, well, we've just flown around the sun a few more times, so now I'm older, but sure. I just same old me, same old vices, same old problems, whatever it is. And so I think these men's programs, I think they speak for themselves, that they're so well attended, and so the need is so obviously there.
Right.
All the naysayers who say there's no such thing as authentic manhood or masculinity or whatever it is, clearly there is. And yeah. I think it's a really urgent time, for all of us,
Well, it's interesting you kind of mentioned that about the rite of passage, because there's so many of these groups, and I'm not just talking about in the church. I'm talking about, secular, especially, you think of things like things that are trying to recover manliness. The Art of Manliness is kind of the well-known blog and podcast and everything that does that. There's ones within the church, Catholic Man Show from Oklahoma, from radio station in Oklahoma. There's other groups. The Real Men Pray the Rosary. Unfortunately, they've kind of gone dormant a little bit, but there are these groups that are trying to recover manliness, and it's trying to cover manly things, appreciation of alcohol, appreciation of cigars, and doing manly activities. Like, I don't know if it's coming through on my microphone or not, but there's people across the street, they had cut down a tree and now they're chainsawing out the stump, things like that, very manly things, working with power tools and stuff like that. And it's interesting to hear, some of that coming into the church as well, that we're starting to kind of recover that, because it is important. We don't do the, if you know the history of like Native Americans, there was a rite of passage that at a certain age, 14 or something like that, when you're considered to be a man, you had to go off and do like a 3-day or a week-long wilderness survival. Basically, you had to go and survive on your own for several days, if not a week. Other organizations, other things had that, where there was a point where you became a man.
Leonidas fight the wolf in 300, I think, or something like that at the beginning.
Yeah.
Same kind of
exactly. So it is important that we have that recognition of being a man. But how do we do that without falling into kind of some of the secular traps that can be out there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's a big one there. The secular traps. Like to your point, what you just said there about all the things that are, you just turn on the TV. That's what it says a man should do. Go get in your man cave and bring your buddies over and so forth. I'm not saying there's anything wrong, particularly with man caves, but what it's missing in what this men's program that we're in really highlights is service.
Right.
The real man serves. He serves his family. He serves his community. He serves at his job. That's what this program has really shown us, is that it's taken what the world says and completely done a 180 and said, look, this is what a real man is. And if you want to be a real man, you're going to serve, and it's the message that Jesus gave us, and so that's nowhere on television. It's virtually nowhere. So.
No, well, you want to talk about television? That's a whole nother argument about how men are treated on television. That's for sure. But
those Tide commercials are still making me mad. From a few months back, I was like around the Super Bowl, and it was just completely, just bashing manhood in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a whole new movement going on, which we're not going to talk about, I guess, on this episode. It's probably best, but we need to stay focused, right?
Yeah, exactly. But one thing it'd be important to kind of bring up too is we talk about service, and of course groups like That Man Is You focus on the spiritual development and things like that. I think most men, when we think of men's groups within the church, we immediately think Knights of Columbus. Which of course is the big one. That's the big organization for men within the Catholic Church, at least in the United States and Canada and a couple other, many other countries. And how would you guys explain, the difference between something like That Man Is You and the Knights of Columbus? Because Knights of Columbus does good things, and the Knights of Columbus is a very valuable thing. But there's a difference there, isn't there? How they handle getting together as men.
And I'll just real quick. I mean, I've been a knight for a long time, and I'm becoming less ashamed to say I'm a first degree knight, and I think that's just sort of where I belong. But I think just in my experience, it's been, and I have nothing but wonderful things to say about the knights, and a lot of good friends here at the radio station that I work at right now. We have a program that they do locally, just all about Knights of Columbus events and stuff. But in my experience, it's mostly been very like you said, like service, just all the wonderful stuff in the community that they do, especially all the pro-life outreach and all that kind of stuff. But in my experience, there was never that much kind of, catechetical, sort of features to it. It just doesn't really seem to be part of the regular meetings, that kind of thing. That it is definitely doing very well in the service department, but it just, I never really had an experience with it having a lot of like faith sharing or anything like that. And I think that that's something that's really coming through in some of these other ministries right now that are helping to make sure that's fed as well.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'll say our grand night here at St. Angelo Merici Parish here in Missouri City, he comes every week to That Man Is You. He's very much involved with That Man Is You. And at the very beginning of each session, we have announcements, and the different ministry leads can come up and say what's going on in their ministry and kind of pitch it, if you will, and talk about what's going on. And so he's come up several times in a That Man Is You setting to talk about the nights and to encourage men to get involved. And there's several nights that come to That Man Is You. So, the lines are, really cross over really nicely at our parish.
Yeah, and I would say that, the nights is, that they have, I don't want to say really they have their place in the service of within the Catholic Church. And That Man Is You is more, I would say, of a relaxed learning and male bonding setting. Whereas, the Knights of Columbus, they definitely serve a substantial purpose within the Catholic faith and the Catholic Church. So yeah, while they're totally different, we still have some fabulous individuals that cross over and join us, and it's a fantastic environment.
No, that's good to hear, because I mean, I've been a knight since I was 18, and of course, as priests are very much a part of the Knights of Columbus as well. So it's good to hear. I mean, that there is that crossover, because unfortunately, when you do have organizations that reach the same kind of people, sometimes you get conflict. These are our people, not your people.
They're all God's people. Haven't we learned that yet?
Yeah. Well, trust me, get some organizations that start conflicting and see what happens. Pride gets in there. That's a human nature thing, but and maybe that's not a bad thing, that there's different focuses, that something like That Man Is You is more personal. It is more catechetical, spiritual development, growth in fraternity. Although, the Knights of Columbus is considered a fraternal organization, they tend to focus more on the service, and group events and group activities. Both are good. We need both. Especially
absolutely.
Men. And then one way, you learn how to serve at That Man Is You, and then you go to the Knights of Columbus and you serve. That's a good thing.
Yep.
And I think too that the word fellowship keeps jumping into my head, partly because I just saw the Tolkien movie a few weeks ago, which I know it's not a review of that movie. I don't know if you guys saw it. It was I thought it was really good. I didn't think there was anything anti-Catholic in it, but it definitely kind of muted the importance, I think, of his Catholic faith, in his life. But that being said, the everything in his own life, that's very, even though none of us went through World War I and the horrors of that, to see, any dramatic thing that happens in life where, friends are ripped away from you, or, you have this really tight knit group that goes through something together, whether that's school or a sports team or even war, there is something about that specifically masculine, I think, kind of fellowship that resonates, that's timeless. That's why we see it in Lord of the Rings, and something resonates with us, even though I'm not seeing elves every day. Actually, I've never seen an elf. just to clarify that. But I do think the fellowship, the accountability to each other, all of those things, that you can have the best intentions to do that on your own somehow, but you can't, because we're created to be social, Right. Mm-hmm. So, I think those are a couple of things that I've noticed I really, look for in these sorts of ministries as well.
Sure. And kind of, of course, for many men, the call is to be not just a man, but also to be a husband and a father. How do you see these groups? How do you see that helping men to be better husbands, to be better fathers, not just better men? How do you guys see that in your lives?
Yeah, so in this particular group, they put out a video that they sent out, and in this video, it depicted a man who came home and he had his cell phone in his hand. And as he walked into the door, he immediately had his cell phone up to his ear. He was talking, still doing work, went straight to his office, shut his kids out. And it just showed this whole thing unfold, and his wife's yelling at him, and he's got a beer, and he's sitting in front of the television, and he's looking at the news, and he's thinking how terrible the world is, and why is the world so terrible? And he doesn't realize that the environment he is creating in his own home is also what he's seeing also in the world.
It's perpetuating.
And so it then rewinds and shows him coming home and putting the phone in his pocket, and instead playing with his kids and embracing his wife when he walks in the door. And just that one difference completely changes the way he interacts with his family, with his kids, with his wife. And that really spoke to me that day that I saw that really spoke to me, and just made it more intentional that when I come home, it's, you're on, you aren't off,
right.
When you walk through that door.
Yeah. And for me, it was actually the first lesson that I was able to go to is what really resonated with me. And that was, I would go to the Catholic Church, and I wasn't at the time, I wasn't Catholic. So I would go and I would sit and when they, were with the Eucharist and they, were presented the Eucharist, I would just sit there, or I would go up and I would get a blessing.
Right.
The first time I went to That Man Is You, they had a statistic on the board that basically said that, single mothers, the chances of a child growing up to go to church was in their 40%, roughly 45%. I don't remember the exact numbers. But if you had a father and a mother attending church regularly, the percentage of children that grow up and go to church and are active in the church as they grow up is what, 78%, 77%?
It was the dad being involved just really ramped up that number significantly.
I remember seeing those statistics as well, and it was something like, even if it's just the dad going to church, not even the mom's missing, it's still better than if it was just the mother going. And this is both for boys and girls. This is, not just, saying, men taking their sons. This is men taking both their sons and daughters. That the statistics are pretty even about that. It's just, there's something about the male example in the faith that does so much more to encourage children than if it's just the mother.
Well, I'm just thinking too, the as far as Father's Day gifts, kind of related to that in a sense too, on a bigger scale. I mean, our daughter Noelle, as I said, she's 2.5, and the other night I'm putting her to sleep, and I go out to get, she's this little, her little baby doll, Nina, she named her. I don't know where she got the name from. She's creative, and she says, "Yeah, I need Nina." I said, "Okay." So I get out and I go find Nina, and I come back, and as I walk in the door, she's laying in bed and has her hands crossed, and she's like, Gigi and Pop and Mommy, and she's like, on her own initiative, praying for everybody. And she goes, "I prayed," and I about lost it, because I thought, I am about as far from perfect, as I'd like to admit being, and but just seeing that, like, she didn't just kind of catch that all on her own. Like, there's some of my wife and my sort of feeble attempts to try to create some kind of space, to try to make that a priority. And sometimes we beat ourselves up so much over how much we're not doing right. I think sometimes we lose sight of those little glimmers of, God doesn't need a lot from us to do some really amazing things,
Yeah, I would agree with that. My son, and I agree that the males and the females, both the girls and the boys, need to see that from their father. Need to see that even though they are a father figure, still their dad has his own father figure. And for me, my son always, I will say he always surprises me in that I swear he has eyes in the back of his head when I don't think he's looking, or when I don't think he's listening. He surprises me all the time, and he surprises me with good things, and so that tells me that either A, I'm doing something right, or B, his mom is doing something right, or C, his family, his sisters are doing something right, or as a whole, as a family unit, we're not perfect, but we're absolutely engaged in being the best Catholics and the best Christians we can be. So no matter what, you always need to make sure that you remember that those eyes are watching and those ears are listening.
Sure. And speaking of not perfect, but something we've found to be very important is on Sunday evening, we get together as a family and we say the rosary. It's very far from perfect. Our kids are all over the place, and sometimes they're doing gymnastics as we're saying the rosary. But we somehow get through it. I have 3 girls, so I have a 10, a 7, and a 1-year-old. So the 1-year-old's always around. Lydia, she's always running around, but nevertheless, my wife and I have made it a point that Sunday evening we're gonna say that family rosary, and that's been a big part of our family spirituality.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Yeah, something that as a priest, it saddens me to see is so many families where the father doesn't come to church. There are so many where the mother is there every week or every other week or how often they can get there. Unfortunately, not all families are as faithful as others, but their mother's there every week. The kids are there every week. The dad's nowhere to be found. What's he doing on Sunday morning? Sleeping in, golfing, fishing, work, reading the newspaper, whatever, but doesn't bother coming to church. And that saddens me. It's because, again, not just these statistics, as vital as these statistics are, or as clear as these statistics are, the importance of that, but because it's their soul they're putting at risk, and their children's souls they're putting at risk. They don't these men don't recognize that, first of all, they have a soul that needs to be saved. They need to be at church because they need a relationship with Jesus so that they can go to heaven and hopefully spend eternity in heaven with their family. But also that, again, the kids are watching, like you said, the kids are watching. And when they see dad not seeing the faith as important, guess what? One day when they're out from mom's guidance, they're going to say, well, dad didn't go to church, so why do I need to go? And that puts their souls at risk.
And we see that. And you're exactly right. We see that at any and every parish that we go to. You see those types of examples. When we're traveling, when we go, off to a tournament or wherever we're at, we try to go to Mass as much as possible in these beautiful churches that are all the way around the United States. And we see just that in any parish that we go to. We see the mother desperately trying to keep track of her kids, and then we see the good side of it too. We see the mom and the dad together with their kids, and those kids may not be perfect. They may not sit still the whole time. They may not, they may be fidgeting, but they're there.
Yep.
And they see mom and dad there, and they see how mom and dad act while they're there. And so even though they may not be perfect, believe me, they're getting something out of it. Those kids are getting something out of it.
Well, I think we have to do it. Well, I'm sure we do have to do a better job, to whatever extent we can be expected to, in our station in life, to try to, first of all, make it clear and actually live this out, that it's not just a small T tradition. It's not just a custom, the whole faith, but it, and the different parts of it as well. But we were at a baptism yesterday. It was on Pentecost Sunday, and a bunch of different people there, most of whom I didn't know, because they had a bunch of different kids who were getting baptized at the same same time. And it was so sad. I just overheard one of the mothers off to the side telling her family right before they went up. She said, you can take all the pictures you want, that's fine. Just don't post them online because on social media, because he doesn't know we're here. Referring to the father, and then saying, and I didn't catch all of it. I wasn't trying to listen, but it was like something to the effect of, like he had something in mind that he wanted to do with it, and had different people he wanted for godparents, and it was this whole thing. And I just was like, that's just beyond heartbreaking because it just shows. I mean, but I was trying to find a glimmer of hope. Like, well, at least I don't know. I mean, mom is finding some sort of importance in this. At least there's that, I guess. But it's just, it just showed. I thought, how mixed up I think we can really be on what the whole thing's about.
Right. Well, kind of, obviously to get men involved, we need to reach out to them. And I guess what I would kind of say, how would you advise, especially, Chad, as a leader for this group, how would you advise, say, me as a pastor? Well, I mean, this is very clearly, I'm asking how would you advise me as a pastor to get something like this going in my parish?
Putting pressure on me. Yeah. Putting pressure on me, their father. So, I'm a firm believer that if the pastor has an initiative in a particular men's group, the men's group is going to be successful. If the pastor says something at Mass, at the end of the Mass, and encourages people to come, they'll come. But that's also on us to invite the pastor and to invite the pastor to come to our meetings, to invite the pastor, hey, Father, would you like to come and say the opening prayer at our first meeting? This, we start in the fall. Or, involving the pastor in your ministry. And then in turn, hopefully the pastor sees the fruits of that and then speaks to it in Mass and speaks to it when he gets an opportunity to reach out to the masses, if you will.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that if you take the time and show the pastor that he's important,
just cut out. I'm going to try to join back in.
This larger role that we're trying to play within the parish, then he'll get involved as well. And so that I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Very good. Any advice from you, Mike, or you kind of agree?
It just my Skype just cut out, but I got back pretty quickly. So
that works.
No, I agree definitely. Just that conversation's important to have. There are so many resources out there. It's not hard to. I think we're very fortunate now that there are so many different models and programs and resources and that sort of thing out there. And we're not as separated as we might have been otherwise, I think.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. Well, anything else you want to kind of, close with as, talking about these men's groups, men's movements? Is there anything any of you would like to kind of close with before we go on to a break and then our picks?
I would just say, don't worry about what you think other people are going to think of you. Get out there, go do it, enjoy yourself, and just jump in with both feet because it's so rewarding.
Absolutely. Well, very good. We were having some Skype technical difficulties here, so this is a good time to take a quick break before we go into our picks of the week. By the way, Chad, did they mention to you that did Brian mention to you that our picks of the week, that we always do picks every show?
Yeah, he mentioned that to me. So
good.
I think I've got something to add to it. So
well, very good. Well, we'll do that here in just a minute. But before we go on to the picks, I'd like to once again thank you for listening to Let's Talk. We appreciate you joining us every week. I hope you are enjoying our shows and that you're sharing it with your friends. We want more people to hear what we have to say and to join in the conversation. Of course, it is a conversation not just with our panelists, but with you as well. And we definitely want to hear your feedback on this or any other episode. I'll give the email address out at the end of the show. I also want to thank those who contribute to our Patreon campaign at sqpn.com/give and then click the Patreon link. You can go there to help keep SQPN going, keep these shows on the air, so to speak, that we might continue to bring you more shows and new shows. We've got, of course, we've got the shows we've been promoting, The Secrets of Star Trek, Secrets of Doctor Who, Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World, Catholics of Oz. Don Bettinelli, our CEO, and his wife Melanie are doing a new podcast, Raising the Betts, Betts. Something about pirates and penguins. You'll have to check it out to find out what that's all about. But it's a little more personal on his part, on his and his wife's part. So it's something very much might be interested in if it's something that's more your style. So check that out at sqpn.com. This week, as have been doing every week, I'd like to thank some of our patrons by name: Rick A., Christina T., Dennis G., Jeffrey F., and Catherine N. We thank you and all of our Patreon patrons for your support, and hope you will continue to do so, and that you will continue to share and enjoy our shows. So we're going to go on to our picks of the week. Mike hasn't come back on yet. Hopefully he'll get back on here in a minute. But why don't we start with you, Brian, for your pick this week?
Sure. So my pick this week is a book. It's called How I Stayed Catholic at Harvard. It's a book by Aurora Griffin, 40 Tips for Faithful College Students, by Ignatius Press. And it's basically how, Catholic kids, when they go off to college, they have their own armor of faith, of their Catholic faith in a secular world, especially nowadays in the colleges. There's always somebody poking at you left or right and against your faith. And so this is kind of a guide or a how-to stay faithful to the Catholic teachings and your Catholic faith.
Oh, very good. Very good. Sounds interesting. I definitely have to check it out. How about you, Chad? What do you have for a pick?
Yeah, so I also have a book as well, a little bit different of a book, but this book is by Rod Bennett, and it's called The Apostasy That Wasn't. Rod Bennett's a really good author. He has a book called The Four Witnesses that it was early church fathers and their quotes and so forth. And this particular book has really been a book that's filled a gap for me. I'm also a revert back to the Catholic faith and just really wanted to learn more about the early church. And what this book talks about is that there's a lot of apostasy theories.
Sure.
The church fell away at different points of time during Constantine and so forth. But this book really shows the continuity of the church, the early church, and it's a nice book. I really enjoyed it. Also, really enjoyed listening to a SQPN podcast, the Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World. That show is really that's another one of my picks. I'm a big fan of that show, so really enjoyed it.
Excellent. Yeah, Jimmy Akin does a really great job on that show, and there's a lot of fun topics that they can pick out for that one. So yeah, definitely if you haven't checked it out, please do. Well, Mike is still having technical difficulties, so if I can get a hold of him, we get a pick, I'll add it to the show. But at this point, for my pick, I'm going to actually pick something for our spiritual fathers, such as myself. Of course, we didn't talk about that with Father's Day. We focus more on the biological fathers, which is good. But what I'm going to pick is a Facebook group called Priest Fit. Priest Support Group. It's a group started by a couple of priests who recognize the fact that me and my brother priests don't always have the most healthy living habits. We eat too much and too much of the not so good food, the junk food, the quick eat and go food. We have a fairly sedentary lifestyle. We don't exercise. We don't get out and move. And so their encouragement with Priest Fit is to fix that, is for priests to, eat better, get exercising, but also get themselves spiritually fit. It's not just physically fit. It's not just losing weight. It's not just building muscle mass, running, things like that. As important as that is, that physical health, it's also the spiritual health. It's also growing spiritually, taking time for prayer. Again, priests, like most men, are busy. We have things going on constantly. So it's also about taking time for prayer. And right now with Pentecost, we started I've been part of this group here for a couple of months now, almost a year, I think. And we started a new challenge, a Pentecost challenge. So for the next month, now that we're past all the confirmations and Easters and all these things that keep us busy and keep us running and keep us, or not running physically, but, keep us occupied and keep us, maybe not eating the best of foods, we can stop now, and we're getting into summer, and now we can take the time again to to recommit ourselves to physical health, to mental health, to spiritual health. So I want to encourage my brother priests to check that out. I'll put a link to it, the Facebook group, but you can search for the Priest Fit Priest Support Group on Facebook. And I also want to encourage our lay people, my lay brothers and sisters, pray for your priests. Pray that we may be good spiritual leaders, but that we may also take care of our spiritual and physical health. Encourage your priest. Find out how you can help support your priest. Like if an example might be, as much as we enjoy the good baked goods, maybe consider helping. Say, hey, Father, would you like me to cook you a dinner, bring you over a good dinner sometime instead of a pile of cookies, as much as we enjoy the pile of cookies. Things like that. I mean, that's just something off the top of my head, things that you can do to encourage your priest, help him. Maybe if your priest has expressed some concerns about his weight, say, well, yeah, I'd be willing to help you, find the resources or find the help you need or find someone a trainer, things like that. So check that out. Again, my brother priests and help the priests. And then here comes Mike. Hey. He's back.
That was bizarre. So
some
what
real technical difficulties. Yeah. So we're actually just finishing up our picks of the week. So you got perfect timing. I just did mine, and you're the last one, so I won't worry about adding yours in. I'll just do it. We'll just do it do it live.
Did anybody already mention The Catholic Gentleman by Sam Guzman, the book?
Nope.
Okay, I had 3 lined up because I thought it might come up. So, yeah, it's a really, really great book. I must confess, I haven't finished it yet, but I'd be surprised if all of a sudden it just gets really terrible. But I actually heard him interviewed on the Catholic Man Show with David and Adam. I love that show. Yep. I got to talk to those guys a couple times, but it's a really good book that has really short chapters, and he just goes through things like virtue, how you present yourself in public. Like it makes a really strong case for trying to rediscover, the concept of a gentleman, in a specific kind of Catholic, environment. So I'm liking it so far.
Excellent. Yep. Yeah, I'd heard that same episode of the Catholic Man Show, although I had, so I haven't checked it out yet. I'll definitely have to do that as well. So. Well, thank all of you for coming on, even with our technical difficulties and Skype being, Skype.
Yep. It didn't give me any warning. No, thank you, Father. Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, guys.
So, Mike, is there any place you'd like to promote for people to find you? Or
just my website's thegraciousguest.org. I've been busy with the house move, so my blogs and videos and all that kind of stuff and podcasts are a little behind, but they'll catch up eventually.
Sounds good. How about you, Brian? Is there anything that you'd like to promote? Or
sure. I wanted to wait until I was Catholic, but I'm just now starting a new Facebook page called the Catholic Sporty. All things sports and Catholicism. So, there's not too much substance up there just yet, but there's a lot of style. So give it a couple of weeks, and you'll see some good stuff up there.
Excellent. And by the way, we should say publicly congratulations for entering the church. I don't think you've been on since that happened. So,
thank you very much. Excited to be here. Finally.
Yes. We're glad to have you home. So, and then Chad,
glad to be here.
Do you have anything you'd like to promote or?
No, nothing personal, but I would encourage all the men, especially that are listening to your podcast, to check out That Man Is You online and just see if it's available in their parish, and if it is, to check it out.
And to get to That Man Is You have to go through Paradisus Day. Yeah,
so if you go to paradisusday.org, thank you, Brian. There's a link there to That Man Is You. They have other things going on with Paradisus Day, but that's the main website.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll get that. We'll make sure all this is in the show notes. We got to make sure, so people can find them. Make sure you got links to that. So look at our show notes. Dom will make sure they're up there. Once again, I'm Father Corey Stika. Thank you once again for listening. You can find my homilies I post on my website, frcorey.org. My Facebook page is Father Corey Stika, and Fr Corey Stika is my Twitter handle. If you would like to leave us feedback, of course, you can leave it on the SQPN feed, SQPN Facebook or YouTube channels on this recording, or you can go to, or you can send an email to letstalk@sqpn.com. Please do send feedback. We want to hear what you have to say about this episode or any episodes, especially if you've got any recommendations for other men's movements or men's groups that you think is worth talking about. Thank you once again for listening, and God bless.